third day dawned with Miracle burning with fever. She lay on her mattress, her body shaking despite the heat that seemed to cook her from the inside. Her nightdress clung to her skin, soaked with sweat. But the fever wasn't the worst part, it was the movement beneath her flesh that made her bite down on her blanket to keep from screaming. The things under her skin had grown stronger. She could feel them shifting, stretching, pushing outward with each passing hour. "Miracle? Are you awake?" Uncle Dyke's voice came from across the room. He approached and knelt beside her mattress. She couldn't hide her condition anymore. Her face was pale, her eyes sunken with dark circles beneath them. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Uncle Dyke placed a hand on her forehead and quickly pulled it back. "You're burning up. How long have you been like this?" "Just since yesterday," she lied, her voice barely a whisper. He shook his head, his face tight with worry. "This is not good. You're sick. Real sick. We're going to the hospital right now." "No." The word burst from her with surprising strength. Miracle clutched her chest protectively. The thought of doctors seeing what was happening to her, what she had done to herself, filled her with terror. "It's just malaria. I'll take herbs. Agbo will fix it." "This is not malaria," Uncle Dyke insisted. "Look at you. You can barely speak." "Please," she begged. "No hospital." He hesitated, clearly torn between respecting her wishes and doing what he thought was right. Finally, he threw up his hands in frustration. "Stubborn girl. Fine. I'll go get some medicine from the chemist. But if you're not better by tonight, I'm carrying you to the hospital myself, you hear me?" Miracle nodded weakly, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Uncle." The moment the door closed behind him, she gathered her strength and sat up. The movement sent waves of pain through her chest. She had to see what was happening now. Had to know how bad it had become. With trembling fingers, she ripped off her nightdress. The scream that rose in her throat lodged there, trapped by pure horror. 2 long, dark shapes now pushed against her skin, taut as overripe fruit ready to burst. The flesh around them had turned an ugly purple, with veins black as oil spreading outward like spider webs. As she stared, one of the shapes moved, stretching her skin so thin she could almost see through it. "Pretty Miracle." The voices in her head whispered, clearer now than ever before. "Almost time, almost ready." "Ready for what?" she whispered back, terrified. The shapes pulsed in unison, as if answering her question. Miracle didn't wait for Uncle Dyke to return. She had to find Mama Chica. The woman had done this to her, she had to know how to stop it. She pulled on her loosest dress, grabbing Uncle Dyke's jacket to hide the bulges on her chest. Each step sent jolts of pain through her body, but desperation drove her forward. The market exploded with noise when she arrived, hawkers shouting prices, children laughing as they chased each other between stalls, music blaring from crackling speakers. The smell of frying plantain and roasting meat filled the air. On any other day, it would have made her mouth water. Today, it turned her stomach. No one paid attention to the hunched girl clutching her chest as she pushed through the crowd. Everyone was too busy with their own business. "Excuse me," she called to people as she shoved past them. "Let me through, please." When she finally reached the back of the market, where Mama Chica's stall had been, she found only empty crates. The wooden chair was gone. The table with her strange oils and powders gone. "Where is she?" Miracle demanded, grabbing the arm of the yam seller at the next stall. "Where is Mama Chica?" The woman looked annoyed at first, then her expression softened when she saw Miracle's pale, sweating face. "That one? She packed up yesterday," the woman said, shrugging. "Said she was traveling. Said she wasn't coming back." "What? No, she has to come back." Miracle's voice rose with panic. "She has to help me?" "Help you with what?" the woman asked, suddenly suspicious. "What did that witch do to you?" But Miracle couldn't answer. A cold dread slithered down her spine as the reality sank in. Mama Chica was gone. There would be no help. She turned and ran, knocking over baskets of tomatoes and yams as she pushed blindly through the crowd. Desperate sobs built in her chest, shaking loose whatever was growing inside her. The pain increased with each step. "Come back," the yam seller shouted after her. "Little girl, wait." But Miracle kept running. The pain hit like a bolt of lightning as she rounded a corner away from the market. One moment she was running, the next she was on her knees, clawing at a filthy wall for support. Help, she tried to call, but no sound came out. Her body convulsed as she collapsed against the wall, nails scraping cement. Something was tearing inside her, a wet, ripping sensation that brought stars to her vision. It felt like her chest was being split open from within. A few people stopped to stare at the girl writhing on the ground, but none approached. In Lagos, you minded your own business. You never knew what trouble might follow if you didn't. When Miracle finally found the strength to look down, the blood in her veins turned to ice. Her skin had split open in two places. Through the tears, two glistening, pointed tips protruded, long and dark and slick with something that wasn't blood. As she watched in horror, they grew longer, pushing out like snakes emerging from their holes. "No," she whimpered. "Please, no." But the things continued to emerge, growing longer with each passing second. 3 inches, 4 inches, 5. A woman walking past with a basket of tomatoes finally noticed what was happening. She screamed, dropping her basket. Tomatoes rolled across the dirty ground. "Jesu! What is that?" the woman cried, backing away while making the sign of the cross. The scream drew others. Soon a small crowd gathered at a safe distance, pointing and whispering. "Is it a demon?" Someone call the police. "No, call a pastor." Miracle stumbled backward, her back hitting the wall. The things on her chest, they weren't nipples. Not really. They were too long, too pointed, moving with a life of their own, and they were still growing. "Please," she begged the crowd. "Help me." But they only backed further away, some taking out their phones to record the strange sight. The Lagos evening air was thick with smoke and the smell of frying oil when Uncle Dyke finally found her. The crowd had grown larger but kept their distance, creating a circle around Miracle as she sat slumped against the wall. Miracle. Uncle Dyke pushed through the onlookers. "Everyone is talking about." His words died as he saw her huddled form. The jacket had fallen away, revealing what had emerged from her chest. His face went slack with horror. What have you done?" he whispered, taking a step back. She couldn't answer. The things on her chest, now nearly 8 inches long, twitched at the sound of his voice. They swayed slightly like snakes sensing prey. Uncle Dyke made the sign of the cross, his hand trembling. This is not natural. We're going to a real hospital. Now. Or maybe a church first." He took a cautious step forward, reaching for her arm to help her up. "Don't," Miracle warned weakly. "They don't like being touched." But it was too late. As Uncle Dyke's hand came close, one of the pointed tips lashed out fast as a whip grazing his forearm. He yelped and jumped back, clutching his arm where the thing had touched him. Before their eyes, the skin on his arm bubbled and blackened, as if burned by acid. "What in God's name?" Uncle Dyke cried, staring at his arm in shock. Miracle's stomach heaved at the sight. The voices in her head crowed with delight, laughing at Uncle Dyke's pain. "See how strong we are?" they whispered to her. "See what we can do?" "I'm sorry," Miracle sobbed, pressing herself harder against the wall. "I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to look like other girls." Uncle Dyke looked at her with a mixture of pity and fear. "This is not normal, Miracle. This is not what you wanted." "I know," she whispered. "I know that now." The crowd around them had grown larger. Some people were praying loudly. Others were shouting for someone to call the police or an ambulance. "We need to get you away from here," Uncle Dyke said, looking around nervously. "Can you walk?" Miracle nodded weakly and tried to stand. The things on her chest swayed with her movement, making her feel sick. "Cover them," Uncle Dyke instructed, careful not to get too close. "Use the jacket." As Miracle reached for the fallen jacket, she caught sight of her reflection in a shop window. What she saw made her freeze. The things protruding from her chest were still growing, and now they seemed to be watching her like they had eyes of their own. News traveled fast in Lagos. By morning, Uncle Dyke's compound was surrounded by neighbors, curious onlookers, and even a few self-proclaimed prophets claiming they could cast out demons. People pointed and whispered as they gathered outside. Some threw stones at the door. "Witch, come out!" someone shouted from the crowd. "Send her away before she curses us all," called another. Inside the small room, Uncle Dyke paced back and forth. His injured arm was wrapped in a dirty bandage that was already turning black at the edges. The wound hadn't stopped burning since yesterday. "They won't leave," he said, peering through a crack in the window. "They'd been there all night." Miracle sat huddled in the corner, wrapped in all the clothes she could find. The things on her chest had continued to grow overnight. Now, they were nearly a foot long, curling slightly at the ends. She could feel them pushing against the fabric of her shirt, eager to break free. "I'm sorry, Uncle," she whispered. "I never meant for this to happen." Uncle Dyke turned to look at her. Fear and pity battled in his eyes. "I know, Miracle, but you can't stay here." His voice trembled slightly. "I'll buy you a bus ticket home." "Home," Miracle repeated. She thought of the village that had mocked her flat chest, the school children who had laughed, the teacher who had humiliated her. She thought of her mother who never understood her pain. A hysterical laugh bubbled up from her throat. "Where could I possibly go now?" she asked, spreading her arms. "Look at me." As if in answer, the things on her chest quivered beneath her clothes. They seemed to be listening. A rock smashed through the window, showering the floor with broken glass. "Leave, witch!" someone screamed from outside. Uncle Dyke jumped back from the window. "We have no choice," he said firmly. "You must go back to the village. Maybe your people will know what to do. Maybe a traditional healer there." Miracle nodded slowly. She had no better ideas. "I'll get you a ticket for the first bus tomorrow morning," Uncle Dyke said, reaching for his wallet. "And I'll walk you to the station." That night, Miracle didn't sleep. The things on her chest wouldn't let her. They squirmed and twisted whenever she tried to lie down, as if excited about the journey ahead. "Are you happy now?" she whispered to them in the darkness. "You've ruined everything." "We are just beginning," the voices whispered back. The sky was still dark when Uncle Dyke led Miracle to the bus station. He had given her his largest shirt and a thick shawl to cover herself. Even so, early morning traders and street sweepers stared as they passed. "Keep your head down," Uncle Dyke advised. "Don't talk to anyone." At the station, he bought her a ticket to her village and handed her a small bag with food and water. "This is all I can do," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. Miracle nodded. "Thank you, Uncle, for everything." He hesitated, then patted her shoulder awkwardly, careful to avoid her chest. "May God be with you." The bus was already half full when she boarded. Miracle made her way to the back row, where she could sit alone with her back to the window. She wrapped the shawl tightly around herself, pulling it up to her chin. As the bus filled, an old woman sat down beside her. She smiled politely at Miracle before taking out her rosary beads and beginning to pray. The journey started smoothly enough. The bus rattled out of Lagos, passing through crowded streets that gradually gave way to more open roads. Miracle leaned her head against the window, watching the city disappear behind them. But as the hours passed, the movement of the bus seemed to agitate the things on her chest. They twisted and turned beneath her clothes, making her gasp with sudden pain. The old woman glanced at her with concern. "Are you well, my daughter?" "Yes, Ma," Miracle lied. "Just travel sickness." The woman nodded sympathetically and returned to her prayers. The road grew rougher as they left the main highway. When the bus hit a deep pothole, everyone bounced in their seats. Miracle's shawl slipped from her shoulders. Before she could grab it, one of the long, pointed things pushed against Uncle Dyke's shirt, stretching the fabric into an obvious, unnatural shape. A child sitting across the aisle saw it first. He pointed and screamed, "Mummy, that lady has snakes in her shirt." Heads turned. The old woman beside Miracle looked down and saw the fabric moving on its own. Her eyes widened in horror. She clutched her rosary tighter and quickly moved to another seat. "What is that?" someone asked. "Is it alive?" asked another. The mother of the child who had screamed clamped a hand over his mouth and dragged him to the front of the bus, away from Miracle. Miracle grabbed the shawl and covered herself again, but it was too late. The damage was done. People were staring, whispering, pointing. Some made the sign of the cross. Others held up charms for protection. The driver's eyes found hers in the rearview mirror. They were wide with fear. "Stop the bus," someone shouted. "Get her off." "She'll curse us all," yelled another. The driver pulled over at the next village. He stood up and pointed at Miracle. "You, off my bus, now." "Please," Miracle begged. "I need to get home. It's still so far." But the driver was firm. "Off, or we will remove you." With no choice, Miracle gathered her small bag and stepped off the bus into the dusty roadside. As soon as her feet touched the ground, the driver closed the doors and the bus sped away, leaving her in a cloud of red dust. She was still 2 villages away from home. With no other option, Miracle began to walk. The forest path connecting the villages had never seemed so long. The midday sun beat down on her, making sweat pool under her clothes. Each step was an effort, her feet dragging in the dirt. The things on her chest had grown even heavier, their tips now brushing her belly button when she stood straight. They moved constantly small, searching twitches that made her whimper with pain and fear. Just a little further, she told herself. Then Mother will know what to do. But as she walked, doubt crept in. What if her mother rejected her too? What if the village drove her away? After hours of walking, she finally saw familiar landmarks: the big Iroko tree where children played, the stream where women washed clothes. She was almost home. The first villager to see her was old Mazio Konku gathering firewood near the path. When he looked up and saw Miracle approaching, his eyes widened in shock. The firewood tumbled from his arms as he turned and ran toward the village, shouting warnings. By the time Miracle reached the edge of the village, a crowd had gathered. They stood at a distance, watching her approach with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Children hid behind their mothers' wrappers. Men gripped machetes and walking sticks. Neka, her younger sister, stood at the front of the crowd. Her face had gone pale, her usually quick tongue silent for once. "A miracle," she stammered, taking a small step forward. "Is that really you?" Miracle nodded, too exhausted to speak. The shawl had slipped again, revealing the strange shapes moving beneath Uncle Dyke's shirt. Then the crowd parted and her mother pushed through. She wore her market clothes, a faded wrapper and head tie. Her hands were still dusty from grinding cassava. "What is all this noise about?" she demanded. Then she saw Miracle and froze. For a long moment, mother and daughter stared at each other across the village clearing. Then her mother's eyes dropped to Miracle's chest, where the pointed tips now pushed visibly against the fabric, moving with a life of their own. "Miracle," her mother whispered, her voice breaking. "My child, what have you done to yourself?" The things beneath Miracle's shirt seemed to respond to her mother's voice. They stretched forward, pulling the fabric with them, eager to be free. Miracle took one more stumbling step toward her mother, arms outstretched. "Mama," she cried, "help me." Then her legs gave way, and she collapsed onto the dusty ground of the village she had tried so hard to escape. As darkness closed in around her, she heard the voices in her head laughing with delight. "Home at last," they whispered. "Now we can truly begin." Miracle collapsed at her mother's feet, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, help me please," she begged, her voice breaking with each word. Her body shook with pain and fear. Her mother knelt beside her, trembling hands reaching out. Despite her obvious fear, she pulled Miracle into her arms. "My child, what happened to you?" she whispered. As they embraced, the strange pointed things on Miracle's chest shifted beneath her clothing. The movement was visible to everyone watching. Several villagers jumped back. Some women screamed, and others made the sign of the cross. "Abomination!" someone shouted from the crowd. "Send her away," yelled another. Miracle's mother held her tighter. "No, this is my daughter," she cried out, though her own body shook with fear. Miracle sobbed into her mother's shoulder. "I just wanted to be like other girls, Mama. I just wanted to be normal." Her mother stroked her hair gently. "Shay, my child." After a moment, she looked into Miracle's eyes with determination. "This is not hospital matter," she whispered so only Miracle could hear. "This is spiritual. We must see Pastor Emmanuel." As darkness fell, they made their way to the village church. a small building with a tin roof that gleamed in the moonlight. Most of the villagers followed at a distance, whispering among themselves. Pastor Emmanuel stood at the church entrance, Bible in hand, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the cool night air. He had been praying since hearing the news. "She's here," Miracle's mother announced, her voice weak from exhaustion and worry. The pastor's eyes widened as they fell upon Miracle. He quickly crossed himself but showed no fear. "Bring her inside," he said firmly. "We need emergency deliverance now." Inside the church, kerosene lamps cast eerie shadows on the walls. The congregation packed the small building, their faces a mixture of fear and curiosity. The church elders had set up drums near the altar. "Everyone, pray," Pastor Emmanuel commanded as he guided Miracle to the front. The drums began slowly at first, then quickened their pace. People clapped and shouted prayers. Some women wailed, calling on God to show mercy. Pastor Emmanuel uncorked a small bottle of olive oil. "This is anointed oil," he told Miracle as he poured it over her head. The oil ran down her face and neck. "Father God, we come against every evil spirit," he shouted, his voice rising above the drums. Miracle suddenly felt a burning sensation in her chest. The things beneath her skin twisted violently. She doubled over in pain. "It's fighting back," the pastor observed. "The spirit is strong, but our God is stronger." He placed both hands on Miracle's head. "Holy Ghost fire," he shouted with such force that spittle flew from his mouth. Miracle's body convulsed. Her head snapped back, and when she spoke, her voice sounded strange, deeper, and not her own. She wanted to be a woman. The voice bellowed through her. She wanted to be beautiful. "We gave her what she asked for." The drums stopped abruptly. The church fell silent. Even the babies stopped crying, as if sensing something terrible was happening. After several seconds of stunned silence, an elder began to beat his drum again, faster and louder than before. Others joined in. The prayers grew more intense. Pastor Emmanuel pressed his Bible against Miracle's forehead. "In the name of Jesus, come out of her." Miracle's scream pierced the night air. Her eyes rolled back until only the whites showed. Her body jerked violently, her back arching at an impossible angle. And then, all at once, she collapsed. Miracle's body hit the ground with a heavy thud. She lay motionless on the cement floor, her arms spread out like a rag doll's. The church went silent again. "My child," her mother wailed, rushing forward. She fell to her knees beside Miracle's still form. "Oh God, please, not my child." Pastor Emmanuel knelt on Miracle's other side, checking for signs of life. The congregation held their breath. Then Miracle's eyelids fluttered. Her chest rose with a small breath. Her eyes opened slowly, confusion clouding them. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice barely audible and completely her own again. Her mother sobbed with relief, gathering Miracle into her arms. "Thank God! Thank God!" Miracle looked down at her chest in wonder. The long pointed things were gone. Her chest was normal again, flat, but no longer cursed. For the next few days, Miracle slept almost constantly, her body recovering from the ordeal. When she was finally strong enough, her mother took her to a clinic in the next town. "I want to be sure everything is normal," her mother explained as they waited for the doctor. The doctor, a kind woman with gentle hands, examined Miracle thoroughly. A week later, they returned for the results. "What your daughter has is called delayed puberty," the doctor explained. "It simply means her body is developing at a slower pace than her friends. It's completely natural for some girls. With time, she will develop normally." Miracle stared at the doctor in disbelief. "So nothing is wrong with me?" "Nothing at all," the doctor confirmed with a smile. "You just need patience." On the walk home, Miracle stopped in the middle of the path and began to cry. Her mother put an arm around her shoulders. "All that pain, all that fear, for nothing," Miracle sobbed. "I just needed to wait." 3 years passed quickly. Miracle turned 19, and just as the doctor had predicted, her body had developed naturally. She now had the curves she once desperately wanted, but they no longer seemed important. On warm afternoons, she would sit under the large mango tree in the village center. Young girls often gathered around her, drawn by her gentle spirit and the rumors of her past. Adana is already developing, and I'm not, complained one 12-year-old girl one day. I feel like a baby next to her. Miracle took the girl's hand in hers. Please don't rush to grow, she said kindly. Every flower blooms in its own time. Your body knows what it's doing. But the boys laugh at me, the girl protested. Let them laugh, Miracle replied. What matters is who you are inside. Beauty is not in the body. It's in the heart. She often shared her story, leaving out the most frightening parts to warn the girls about the dangers of trying to change their bodies through desperate means. Be patient with your body, she would tell them. Don't let anyone's pressure make you do dangerous things. You are beautiful as you are, and your time will come. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll away. Like, share, and drop a comment below what part moved you the most. Subscribe for more powerful African stories that inspire, warn, and heal. And remember to tell someone today, you are enough, just the way you are.